is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into today's episode of KCSN Update presented by DraftKings. I am your host, Tucker Franklin, and I'm pleased to be joined by fellow member of KCSN. You know him as 1/3 of the KC Laboratory. It's Matty Lane. Matt Lane, how are you doing? Welcome to KCSN Update. It's been a minute since I've had you on a KCSN Update, and I appreciate you hopping on with me.
Listen, I would like to put out a formal petition to be called the thick third of the KC Laboratory. I want that to now be the intro. No longer just 1/3. I want to be the thick third of the KC Laboratory. But besides that, I'm doing good. It's just hot. It's hot here, man. It's hot.
It's hot everywhere. It's hot where you're at. It's hot where we're at. It's probably hot where Craig. Well, no, it's not hot where Craig's
He likes to rub it in our face too.
He does rub it in our face that he has some nice weather where he's at, and I'm jealous. But you know, Craig is great. Craig deserves that nice weather all the time. I think we all can agree on that. But no. So what I usually like to do with these episodes, if you guys are familiar with KCSN Update, familiar with myself, we power rank things. We're power ranking things. It's still the off season. We've got probably a week's worth of these podcasts left. Maybe only 1 week of KCSN Updates left where we don't really have anything to talk about until training camp. And I could not be more excited for training camp because I want to talk about something else. And Chris Jones will probably
can't wait
sign
for you to power
soon.
rank. I can't wait for you to have to power rank things that happen to each and every practice from training camp.
Buddy, you know I'm going to be doing that. That's going to be a bit. Me power ranking what's been going on at Chiefs training camp every single day. Check it out on our YouTube channel. It's going to be a YouTube short. But no, that's a great idea, Matty. I might actually steal that from you. But we're power ranking our favorite off-field moments from the past, what do we say? Not calendar year, but just like from training camp to training camp, from this training camp, from last training camp. Favorite off-field moments for this Kansas City Chiefs team. There's been a lot happen as I kind of went through the Rolodex in my mind of what's been going on off the field. Now, when we say off the field, Matty, we just mean not a game moment, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. You can always veto the other person if they're getting a little too wild, but I think the whole goal is, just anything that's happened since the start of last year's training camp up until now that has not been, like on the field during a game or a game day type situation.
So that being said, we're going to go 5-1 as we usually always do here on KCSN Updated with our power rankings. And Matty, why don't you start with your fifth favorite off-field moment that happened? When we were going through this, you said you made a list of about 6. And so I'm curious which one you ended up putting at number 5.
I've weaned it down. I took some out. Okay, like full disclosure, this became like a celebration of Patrick Mahomes list for a minute, and I tried to come up with some other stuff that wasn't just related to Patrick Mahomes. So this is my number 5. This might be my favorite one. The Cincinnati Fraud Ghouls stealing Chris Lamons off the Chiefs practice squad because they were afraid to get bopped in the AFC Championship game. Just the pure fear of them having to steal a special teams player off of the Chiefs practice squad right before the game that they still ended up losing. And then the fact that they have since released him without even giving him a chance to come and work out with them, go through camp and stuff like that, just shows exactly what that move was. Like, that's going to be something I think I'm going to remember. I'm just going to remember that and how silly that whole concept was. So the Fraud Ghouls signing Chris Lamons out of fear off the Chiefs practice squad right before the AFC Championship game.
I really think that kind of ratcheted that game up kind of a notch. It was already a high stakes game, but like having such a move, and Kent was fired up about that. Like it was one of those moves I was like, really? I don't know why that got such a rise out of Kent. He hated it. He was very upset about it. I think he called it Bush League at one point when we were in Vegas. He was just like Twitter fingering away about the Bengals being so upset, or him being so upset about the Bengals doing that. I love that Chris Lamons got a Super Bowl ring too. He wasn't on the Super Bowl team, but he played a lot of the year with the Kansas City Chiefs and was a very big contributor to the special teams. But I like that's on my list. We'll hear about it later. Number 5. Maybe this is a little low. Maybe it's also a little bit. I'm maybe a prisoner of the moment at this point, but I think the quarterback talk is an interesting storyline that hit the airwaves on Wednesday. People have been watching it, eating it up. There's been some great Patrick Mahomes clips come out of it to see what he's done. Unfortunately, I haven't, as the time of recording this podcast. Hopefully, by the time you're listening to this podcast, I have seen episode 1, but right now I haven't. I've just seen the clips circulating around. it looks really good. I'm excited to see just kind of the inside, the ins and outs of what's going on with Patrick Mahomes. But I remember when we heard that was like happening, we're like, oh, like that's kind of crazy. Like that's gonna be
New?
nuts. Because also they won a Super Bowl this year with a documentary crew following around. And I love the Hard Knocks style of just like behind the scenes stuff like that. So that was one of those moments where I said, that's pretty sick. I'm excited to see the quarterback for the team that I like and the team I cheer for get to be followed around by a documentary crew. I'll take it. It's pretty cool.
No, I'm with you. I also have not seen it as of yet. I've just seen the I haven't even seen like clips anyone posted. I just saw the trailer and then that premiere like sneak peek of the first 4 minutes. I have been purposely avoiding all of you guys with your Twitter spoilers about the whole thing. So I'm hoping to get to watch it. Well, I guess by the time this is going up and you're watching this, maybe I have started it at this point in time though.
You'll just have to follow him on Twitter at Matty_KCSN to see if he's seen it, because I'm sure Matty will tweet about it as he sees it. I will as well. The plan is to watch it tonight as I'm recording this podcast on Wednesday. As we said, this will come out obviously on Thursday. Plan is to watch it. I will have takes if that's what you're into. I will have takes. But Matty, let's get to number 4. What do you have as your number 4 on your list?
Mine is a combo piece. It's the Chiefs ring ceremony, but it's specifically Petty Pat getting the 2-ring picture, you know, the whole, you know, that's who, all of that, like just that, everything around that, like all of the different pictures and leaks and everything that came from the ring ceremony, from Kelsey, from all the guys that are there, but specifically Pat being Petty Pat, like he is known to do when people start to talk trash, getting that picture with both rings out there, like that, kind of to me encompassed the attitude of this team and just kind of where they are right now. Like, you know, they're no longer the plucky upstart team that won that first Super Bowl. This is a team that everyone knows is supposed to be there, has spent a couple years talking down on how they maybe aren't going to get back to it. They do it again. They're still trash talking. They're just kind of letting everyone know, like, hey, we have 2 rings now in a short period of time. So like that matters. So that comes in at number 4 for me.
That's a good one. I do love when Pat does that trash talking, the count, the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's that gets me fired up. And again, with the quarterback doc, I think we're gonna get to see a whole lot more of that.
So much in there.
And there's a clip of him talking to Max Crosby saying you woke up the wrong MFer. I mean, that's so good. Number 4 I've got on my list is I encapsulate it as just like Bengals talk, just like the rivalry, how it kind of escalated with the Bengals from, losing the 2 games the season prior to losing the regular season game, and then ratcheting all the way up into the AFC Championship game. The Chris Lamons move played into it. The talk back and forth. Justin Reed saying, he confused him with Higbee, right? Because they just played the Rams the week before. And then, that was a mess. And then it just kind of like just escalated throughout the season. The fans have been chirping back and forth. I don't think that there's a beef on Twitter that the Chiefs have had more with. Patriots fans might have been up there, but I think the Bengals are just like, it's like at a different level than like any other fan base at this point.
I mean, I think so. That's been a weird spot for the Chiefs now, as the Chiefs have gotten really good. They've dominated the AFC West. You don't have that natural rivalry right now going on with the Broncos or the Raiders, which has been there in the past. And while the Chargers on the field are technically your biggest rival, that's not a fan base that is easy to hold a hostile rivalry with, especially online, right? Yeah. So the Bengals fans have given the Chiefs somewhere to direct that anger and feud online, and it's great. And the players are definitely playing into it as well.
Yeah. Matty, let's get your number 3 favorite off-field moment. What do you got?
I have the Super Bowl parade. This one wasn't quite, it wasn't the same as the first one, I think, for like myself, and then probably for a lot of people, not necessarily the players, but a lot of fans around Kansas City. It didn't seem like quite as many people maybe were there this time, but they had just did it. Weather plays a part. I know there was some stuff to it, but still, like, it's still fun to see the guy, see all these football players, all these guys that work so hard for this, go out, get to have fun. It's something fun to watch, to get used to. You see people generally just getting to have fun and do what they want to do. There's a lot of fun clips. You get Leo Chanel, scaling the outside of a double-decker bus. You get, people doing wrestling promos. You get Pat handing the fake Lombardi trophy to some random person in the crowd. Like, you just get all sorts of fun stuff that happens. It's a fun day to follow along on the internet.
Absolutely. I do remember that day. I was there, and it was cold. It was not as cold as the first parade, But the first parade was a little different. You know, they just done it in 50. It's been 50 years since they had done it. So makes sense why a lot of people were there. But number 3 on my list, Super Bowl parade was fun. Super Bowl parade does not make my list. Um, I've got the Kadarius Toney trade, and I think at that point, the trade itself, I'm just going to focus on the trade. I know there's been a lot of recent things about Kadarius Toney, but the trade itself was one of those things that, Maddie, I don't know about you, it feels like we didn't expect that to happen with Kadarius Toney. I don't know if there was a lot of talk about him being moved at the deadline, or really a lot of buzz with him and the Chiefs specifically, but them going out there making that move for Kadarius Toney, which was it seemed like foresight move. I believe at the time when we did the live stream, Maddie, I think it was you and I who did that live stream, and maybe BJ was on there with us. That's been a minute. But we talked about
much has happened.
right. We've talked about they've got team control with him. It's a cheap move. I mean, they don't think they gave up a whole lot for him, and a guy that ended up eventually scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl for him, and possibly having the biggest play in that Super Bowl as well, with the punt return to set them up to score his touchdown. So the Kadarius Toney trade I've got at number 3. But Maddie, before we get your take or your number 2, I want to take a quick break first. We'll be right back after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Thank you for listening to today's KCSN update presented by DraftKings. We are ranking our favorite off-field moments from the Kansas City Chiefs. Maddie, before we move on to your number 2, did you have any thoughts on the Kadarius Toney trade, or is that going to show up later? Or
that wasn't on mine. I think the trade was good for the Chiefs. It clearly helped them win a Super Bowl. It's not going to be super, I don't think, memorable for me. I think there would just a lot would have to happen from now going forward for me to look back on this season or time of the Chiefs to remember the Kadarius Toney trade. And part of that is just a little bit of uncertainty about the future, given the health history and just what we've seen so far. So I don't have that on my list.
What do you have at your number 2?
This is called the Chiefs in Hollywood. So this is where I kind of package together the quarterback documentary. When Patrick Mahomes gets his quarterback documentary, I got Travis Kelce on Saturday Night Live kind of bunched in here. Even if you want to throw in the pod, whatever you want to do, just these Chiefs players, mostly Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, doing TV, doing this Hollywood stuff, getting out in front of the national media on all these different levels. I haven't got to see the quarterback documentary yet. I can just tell from everything I've seen, it's going to be great. Sounds like everyone's loved it. Yeah. Travis Kelce on Saturday Night Live was phenomenal. I laughed. I don't watch the show weekly, so I'm not going to say it was one of the best shows, not best shows or whatever, but I had fun when I did watch it. So just having these players that you root for every week and stuff like that, branch out and do funny stuff, not just on football. And then, like I said, you want to throw in the New Heights podcast that Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce are doing. That's a lot of fun to listen to and see all their stuff that they're doing. So we got the Chiefs in Hollywood coming in at number 2 for me this year.
And number 2, what I've got is the New Heights podcast. I think that is one of the things that started really interesting that, Tyreek Hill goes to Miami. He starts the podcast, right? And then all of a sudden, it seems like a few months later, there's a new podcast with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, 2 guys that Andy Reid trusts greatly, to behind those guys. Well, you would think that he trusts greatly for them to allow that to happen. But regardless, it's been phenomenal. They started that podcast. It became the number 1 podcast in sports. PMT has done that for a long time. Pardon My Take has been the number 1 podcast, and they burst on the scene and I think they've had the number 1 spot since. I haven't really looked all that closely, but they've been wildly successful doing live shows. As you mentioned, Travis Kelce, his star has never been higher. And I really do think it's because of the podcast. I think if he doesn't start the podcast, obviously he's going to be a recognizable guy. He's always been a guy for the spotlight when you talk about catching Kelce and all the stuff that he did in his younger years. But starting the podcast kind of put it on a different level. And I really think that was one of the better moments for Chiefs fans to get to listen to Travis Kelce basically give you an insight on what happened every week.
No, I agree. And it's been phenomenal. I wonder, what do you think on this? Do you think that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce were sitting there for the Chiefs in the past talking with each other about how they both want to start a podcast, trying to just, just with each other? Because you're right. Tyreek Hill kind of came out with it once he was in Miami, and the entire joke was, oh, haha, he wanted out of Kansas City, so because this is something that he would never get to do here.
Yeah.
And then within a couple months, here comes the New Heights podcast with Travis Kelce. It's just like, I wonder, or did Tyreek Hill ask Andy, and Andy just said no and shut it down, and Travis just never asked because of that? Like, I just wonder how that dynamic worked, because I mean, they both have one now. Not that Tyreek Hill's podcast isn't successful in its own right, but clearly the New Heights podcast is, like one of the top ones run by a current player in any sport. So clearly they're doing something right. I just wonder how that dynamic went within the locker room.
That's really interesting. I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know what happened with it, but I think it's easy to speculate that because we did make the jokes about like Tyreek Hill finally gets to do a podcast now because he started it literally almost immediately after he was traded. And it seemed like the Dolphins were okay with it. He did say a lot of stuff on that podcast that that was tough for him to cash up and everything. Like honestly, it was tough for Tua to cash. Let's be honest here. He was writing checks for Tua. I don't know if he could have cashed, but Maddie, let's get to your number one off-field moment. I kind of hope we have the same number one off-field moment, but what is it for you?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I got the draft being in Kansas City. I got
okay. No, we don't have the same one.
Getting to I see now I'm worried that I'm just completely blanking on something. But no, I got the draft being in Kansas City, and while it's not just related to the Chiefs, right? Like obviously every team's involved, it's put on by the NFL. There's still a lot of connection to the Chiefs getting to do it. The Chiefs picked at the end of round one and had the most prolonged, here's all of our Super Bowl trophies. Watch us be the villains right now. You have nothing else to do but watch us because you have to see what happens next. And so like just the whole concept, and then, getting to see that be in, the hometown where I grew up, everything coming there. The Chiefs clearly embraced everything about it. The Chiefs as an organization were heavily involved with everything. That was a lot of fun. I obviously hope that they can do it again in Kansas City at some point in time, because I would love to go back and do it again. So that came in at number one for me, but I'm nervous at what you have for one, because it seems like you thought I might have the same thing.
Well, mine is very off field. But I do think that the draft in Kansas City was incredible. And it kind of was one of those moments when I was watching it on TV and they were showing Kansas City. It was like, holy cow. We are there right now. We're like just down the street from where this draft is when we were doing our live show. That was a very cool, surreal moment that like Kansas City is at the center of it all, not only in the football world, but like people are paying attention to it. I think it was a very highly viewed draft. The attendance I don't think was as high as like Nashville or something, but like that's Nashville. So I think that I really did enjoy the draft in Kansas City. I know it caused a lot of people some headaches with travel and everything like that around the city. But listen, I think it was a good progress for them to have the World Cup. But the number one off-field moment that I have is Chiefsaholic, man. I don't know how we can talk about this and not talk about Chiefsaholic when you're talking off-field. Him robbing banks to go to Kansas City Chiefs games is insane. That should be a message to the NFL. You got to lower these ticket prices. You got to get out here robbing banks to go to Chiefs games. No, you got to lower those prices if that's what he's resorting to try to go to every single game. That story, I mean, it just recently kind of, I don't want to say wrapped up because there's still more to this story. It came to a head, probably you could say, with everything that the FBI tweeted out about him. And we're tweeting out affidavits. They've got a link to all like the case stuff and like a maps of where he robbed. It's incredible. It's going to be a 30 for 30. It's probably going to be a long form podcast at some point. Someone's going to do it. Incredible of him getting arrested. Chiefs Twitter being like, "Where is Chiefsaholic at? Is he okay?"
That's the best part. Okay, this should have been my number one. You were correct. This is by far the best offseason. That's the best part. He didn't tweet for like 3 days. It was like 3 days. And the dude took a weekend, right? Like the guy could have just taken a weekend to do something. And Chiefs Twitter starts melting down. Parts of the Chiefs Twitter starts melting down about how they haven't heard from him. He hasn't tweeted. And people are, being a good community and talking with each other about who knows him, where he might be. And you see these people banding together. I'm just like, this is kind of odd, but whatever. And as the day goes on, the people that were kind of leading this, like, oh, I've talked to him in the past, let me see if I can find him, their tune changes. And just all of a sudden it becomes, he's okay, kind of. essentially. And then the whole news drops, and it was the wildest thing of all time that particular day. Like, it's gotten better since, but that first day of when people thought that he was quote unquote missing, and the realization of what was actually going on and the tone changes were hilarious.
Dude, I felt like bad. I was like, man, I hope he's all right. Like, I don't want to see anything bad happen to him. Then I saw it, and I was like, oh no, this dude's out here robbing banks on the way to Chiefs games. You see him posted up, selfieing at the front row of every game, and you're like, I mean, listen, I put hand up. I was one of those guys that was like, how does he afford to do this? You know, he's going to all these games. I was like, what is this man's job? How does he make money?
Well, he tweeted about it at one point in time, Tuck. He told you what he did to make money. He graduated from Kansas State, and then he started his own business.
Worked at a warehouse or something like that until he started his own business. Yeah, that's it. And that's how you can afford that lifestyle of traveling to every single Kansas City Chiefs game and sitting in the front row.
Do you think he does that heel click kick when he goes into the bank? Like, you know, that he does on those videos? You think that's how he enters the doors of the bank? Is that going to be in the documentary?
I hope, dude. I hope somebody does something about this. This needs to happen. And Pat McAfee's been a big cover of the story, so I'm sure something will happen with him, or something will get done. I know they tried to reach him. I don't know if you remember that. They was like, hey, because he was on the run. He skipped bail. He skipped his court date and was on the run. He was arrested in California, of all places. I think that's where
that's where he's from.
Yeah. He was arrested out there. So, like, I don't know. I remember when he also asked for, like, he had a family vacation in Arizona planned that coincidentally the same weekend that the Chiefs were playing in the Super Bowl, and asked to go from the court. And they said, no, you can't go. And he went anyway. So let's just tells you, never let the law get in the way of a good time. Don't quote me on that, please. But no, Chiefsaholic. That's my number one.
Don't rob banks to go to football games.
Listen, this is what we've resorted to. The NFL has made their bed. They got to lie in it on this one, I think. I mean, they've got a super fan robbing banks to even afford to go to their games. That's a red flag, in my opinion. I think the NFL needs to take a little bit of responsibility.
And laying down bets on Jody Fortson anytime touchdowns.
That should have been the first red flag, honestly. if we're doing that, that is a red flag. But I think I really thought that you were going to go with Chiefsaholic at number one. I was pretty confident.
I told you when you said that, I had to feel like I was blanking, and I 100% was blanking on something, because that should have been number one.
Yeah, it is insane.
That's the story. That's the story.
Insane saga. But all right, let's get into our second power rankings. You know, we like to do a serious power ranking. That was our serious power ranking.
That was serious.
That was our serious one. This is our not so serious one. So if you don't want any more Chiefs talk, keep listening. But if you are like, okay, I think I'm good, you can dip. You have my permission. But Maddie and I don't think you're going to want to dip for this one. Maddie and I, actually, this is football adjacent, I would say. Now that I'm remembering what this category is, the category is animals native to North America that would do well in an Oklahoma drill. So it is football adjacent, so you can still stick around. Good news. Maddie, I want you to start with your number 5. What do you got?
Okay, so when I thought about this, like, here's the thing: like, there's two sides to an Oklahoma drill, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you gotta be the ball carrier, you gotta be the tackler. So, like, you know, like saying a bald eagle, they can just take the ball and fly away. Yeah, but like, what are you gonna do when you gotta tackle somebody? You ain't about that life, right? So I went into this. We're starting off strong. The American Bison. We're bringing him in. Big guy, big shoulders. Don't know if you're getting shoulder pads around him, but that's okay. He's a big dude. Strong lower half. They're pretty linear. Not going to be shaking anybody out their boots, but Absolutely. Buddy, you guys are lined up in that tight little alleyway. He's made for contact. Give me the American Bison at number 5.
You might see him on my list make an appearance as well, because when I was making my list, Maddie, I looked up other animals just to make sure I wasn't forgetting one. And I said, oh, I forgot about that one. That was the one I forgot about, to be honest. At number 5, I have a bighorn sheep. Kind of to your similar point. They're good with their head. Now, Roger Goodell, the NFL rules won't love the way that they tackle head first. They won't love that. But I think that they would do really well on the defensive side. A lot of this is hard when you talk about like ball carrier, because I talked about like a snake at first, right? Snake's not gonna do anything. How the snake even hold the ball? I don't know how a bighorn sheep is gonna hold the ball, but on defense he's gonna be pretty dominant. But that's why he's only at number 5, because I think there are a lot of better animals out there that can carry and tackle very well. But I've got bighorn sheep at number 5.
No, that's a pretty good one. I understand the ball carrying, concept here. Let's just
Yeah.
magically say they can figure it out. We can
Right.
train them to put it in their mouth or something, right? Like this is
Okay, yeah,
this
I'm
isn't
sure-
going to
yeah.
really happen. In case anyone's wondering, we're not really going to get these animals together and run an Oklahoma drill. So we can use some imagination here with carrying the ball. For number 4, I'm going mountain lion.
Ooh.
Very agile cat. Jumps around, big. It's not a small cat. It's a pretty big. It's a big cat. It's part of the big cat family, but it's also not small. Jumps around, pretty powerful, also very quick. So some of these bigger animals might have a tough time getting their paws on it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't even think about any cats. Because at number 4, we get this is one that we had a conversation about if it lands in North America, and I got polar bear at number 4. We had to Google where polar bears are at, because I said, because first we were asking about the parameters, right? If it's actually the United States, North America, and my head, as soon as we said North America, went way up north, and I said there's got to be polar bears up there. There are polar bears even in the United States. Alaska is what you said, right, Maddie? Polar bears.
Yeah, so I'm not proud of this because I actually I'm pretty good at geography, but when you first said polar bears, like, oh no, that's North Pole. I'm like, and then it took me a second. It's like, wait, North Pole is not a continent, Matthew. They 100% have to be attached. They have to be attached to Canada or Russia, which they are. But apparently also Alaska. I did not know the Alaska side of it though.
Yeah, me either. I thought that was a little far south. I thought it would have been like further up in like that the Icelands that no one touches in Canada type area. But I've
Also
got
Iceland, the continent.
That is true. Wait, Iceland's not a continent, is it? It's a country.
Not a continent country. That's what I meant. I said
that's
continent. I
fine.
meant country though.
No,
But
that's
yes,
fine.
also
But it made me
Iceland.
think. It made me think of like, is it considered North America?
No. That's not North America. That's its own whole thing. That's Europe.
So what? So it is considered in like Europe as a continent, right? Because like aren't all
Yes.
countries a part of continents, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a part of Europe then.
Iceland and Greenland are part of
Okay,
Europe, yes,
okay.
but they also do have polar bears. And then Alaska, which gives United States, Canada, and then Russia. It's like, really, you got a lot of continents that are kind of getting some
Cover a lot of
polar bears.
continents with that thing.
Polar bears. Woo.
Interesting. Okay, so we're 2 in. To recap, at number 5, Maddie has bison. Number 4, you got mountain lion. Number 5, I've got bighorn sheep. Number 4, I have polar bear. We're gonna take a quick break before we get to our final 3. We'll be right back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
We are power ranking animals native to North America that would do well in an Oklahoma drill here on KCS and Update, presented by DraftKings. Hanging out with Matt Lane, the thick third of the KC Laboratory podcast. It's gonna stick. Let us know in the comments if you like the thick third, Matt Lane. All right, we're on number 3. I just recapped our list before we went to break. Maddie, you have bison and mountain lion. Who is your number 3rd?
This one isn't super fun coming right off the tail of a mountain lion, but I'm going with a jaguar for those other people from the Midwest like me. Very powerful cat, also very agile, but they're one of the strongest cats out there. Pound for pound, these guys jump in the waters, drag crocodiles on out of there to eat them. Like, they're strong, they're powerful, they're hard to take down, and then you still get some agility. I have it just a little bit over the mountain lion, maybe not quite as nimble. Not quite as explosive, but I think more powerful. It's a thick cat. It's a very thick cat. So we're going to go and get the jaguar in there right ahead of the mountain lion before we get into the real big boys at the top.
Hand up. I didn't realize that jaguars were in America. I said jaguars. Everyone
That's what I always say.
I know. We've had several comments about the way I pronounce jaguars. I don't care. I did not realize they were in southwestern United States to Central America.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. This is one I had to look up too, because I was like, I don't think they're in the United States, but hey, maybe they are. Let me give it a look. And
They're
sure
in
enough,
Jacksonville.
according to the old Google,
They nailed it.
they're there.
Yeah. I learn something new every day here on KCSN Update. Number 3, I've got bison. Big bison guy, big animal. I like him. My top 3 are pretty burly. They're pretty burly guys. You
Makes
got some
sense.
pretty big animals going on. Bison, I just think the sheer power and size is one of the things in Oklahoma drills that seem to always go well, right? When you were going through Oklahoma drills back in the day, you didn't really want to get that big guy because, maybe you could juke him out a little bit, but more than likely it's such a close space that you're gonna get hammered. Bison, I've got at number 3. Maddie, you're number 2.
Number 2, we're getting back into the speaking of the burly types, we're going with the grizzly bear. Big old bear, and bears, they can launch, they can do some 2-foot action,
yeah.
some 4-foot action. They got the big old paws. They can reach out there and get you. This bad boy's pushing almost up to 1,000 pounds, but still a little agile, can run a little bit. Give me a grizzly bear coming in here at number 2. I think we can work on both. The ball carrier as a tackler. I think a bear, I would be, you had a polar bear on there. I don't know if you have any more bears, but like a bear is a pretty clear-cut good animal in the wild to translate to football. They're one of the top ones.
And I've got grizzly bear at my number 2 actually as well. Just because I was telling you this before we started. I think the saying goes brown lay down, black attack. Grizzly bears, are they wait, there's brown bears and black bears, right? Like those are 2 separate types of bears. And then grizzlies are like its own thing, right?
I believe grizzly bears fall into the brown bear category, but they are their own type of brown bear, but you can't quote me entirely on that.
I think they're pretty aggressive. I think that grizzly bears are my favorite type of bear. And bears are my favorite animal. So I think that I'm going, and I put them at number 2 because I think there's one animal that is like going to be real good at this.
I wonder if we have the same number 1.
We could have the same number 1. We have the same number 2. What is your number 1?
Right. Just look at the way this is breaking down right now. Like I can't think of a lot of other stuff that would really be competing here for number 1, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, well,
what do you got?
I got the moose coming in at number 1. Big old moose, big old antlers, taking on cars in the streets of Canada. The moose wins. They take them out as they listen. They're not quite as hefty as the bison, but they're a little bit bigger. They have the protection of the giant horns, a little bit more agile. Both of them will be a lot of physical action, a lot of head smacking going on. But give me the moose. Give me the moose. I think it's got the combination of size, speed. It's got the head protection. It's got weapons. Those antlers are huge. You can essentially cover legitimately the entire Oklahoma drill portion of that you're getting in there with just your rack. Just the rack. Give me a big old moose. I think coming in at like 1,600 pounds. Give me a big old moose out there to win this Oklahoma drill.
I always get surprised when I see a video of a moose in like next to a car, and I'm like, oh, like those things are huge. And to full transparency, when I made this list, I wrote down moose at number 1 automatically. I was like, all right, I mean, that's the number 1. Moose is the number 1, and then I'll go from there. But you're right. I think it kind of in the same vein as like bighorn sheep, right? This is just a bigger bighorn sheep of like it's got the head, but it's got an also massive body, and it has I almost said talent. It has the talent to get it done. That the moose is and that's why I clarified. That's why I wanted to clarify with you if we're doing North America. I know they're more prevalent in Canada and there are some in the United States, but I think in Canada they're a lot bigger than they are in the United States.
I think so. Like I think there's different like types of them and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think if you go a little bit farther north, there's some bigger ones. But either way, a moose is huge. Like let's just.
I mean, it's an easy choice. Let us know in the comment section below what you think about animals. If we missed anybody, Maddie, you had the big cats covered. You had mountain lions and jags. I had no cats on my list.
Right. And like realistically in an Oklahoma drill, I think a cat's at a little bit disadvantaged because they're not quite as big and you are dealing with like a little bit of limited space, right? But like that's what I was trying to think. I also want a cat that can jump. Like if I can just take a little leap up and over, that at least covers the ball carrier side. And I tried to get a bigger cat that would maybe stand a chance to bring down a bear or a moose. I had just for the fun. I think I had a Wolverine just off the list. Looking in from the outside, just because I'm never going to bet against it. Like it's obviously not going to win because it's not big enough. Right. But like you're never going to bet against a Wolverine in anything.
Absolutely not. Honey badgers, are they in North America?
And no. We can both look it up now, but I'm pretty sure they don't live in the United States or North America.
The American honey badger.
Hey, well, I'm incorrect then. I thought they were mostly not here, like Africa is where.
Oh wait, you might be right. They might just be badgers in America. Honey badgers are native to areas of Africa and Asia. No, okay, so you were right.
Yeah.
That's according to the San Diego Zoo. Shout out the San Diego Zoo. And I thought about doing a loophole of like, hey, look, all of these animals are in North America because they're at the zoo. But that would have been you said native to North America, so kind of pigeonholed me into it, which I appreciate it. Okay, just review before we go. Maddie, you had bison at 5, mountain lion at 4. Jags at 3, 2 was grizzly bear, 1 was moose. We had the same 2 and 1. I had bighorn sheep at 5, polar bear at 4, bison at 3, grizzly bear at 2, moose at 1. So strong lists all around, honestly. I love to see other people's lists.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Tweet at Maddie and I, at Maddie_KCSN, at Tucker D. Franklin. Tag us in your list on Twitter if you are on Twitter. Leave it in the comments section. You can go to Threads at Tucker D. Franklin on Threads. You're at Maddie. You're Maddie KCSN on Threads, right? Maddie_KCSN.
I'm something on there. I don't know what it is, but I am there. You can maybe find it if you search enough.
Maddie's on Threads. I bullied him into getting it. So that's going to do it for today's episode of KCSN Update. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end of this episode. I know football is almost here. I promise it is almost here, and we're going to run out of these nonsense things to talk about, but appreciate you sticking with us all the way to the end of today's episode. Drop a what emoji should I have you guys drop in the comment section if you stayed all the way to the end? I
think you can do a money bag for Chiefsaholic.
Yes, drop a money bag in the comment section if you stayed all the way to the end of the video, or tweet at me at Tucker D. Franklin. Well, money bag if you listened all the way to the end. Love you guys so much. Thank you for everything we do here at KC Sports Network. For Maddie Lane, I'm Tucker Franklin. Thank you for listening to today's episode of KCSN Update. I'll be back next week. We'll talk to you then.